All right, so guys, this is number 6 out of 11.4. And the problem here says, at a homeowners association meeting, a board member can vote yes, they can vote no, or they can abstain on any motion. It says there's 2 motions on which each board member must vote. So the first question says, determine the number of points in the sample space. Okay, so remember, we have 2 motions. So how about we call it motion 1 and motion 2, okay? So remember, we can either vote yes, we can vote no, or we can abstain. So we can vote yes, we can vote no, or we can abstain. So we have 3 choices here and 3 choices here. So we're going to multiply those together, and that's going to give me 9. So I'm going to choose 9 for my answer for part A. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to enter in my number 9, and we got it, right? Okay, so now the second part says, let's draw a tree diagram. Okay, so let's see if we can't part out. So what I'm going to do here, pull up my picture. Okay, remember, we have 2 motions, right? So when we do the first motion, we have 3 options for that. We can vote yes, we can vote no, or we can abstain. And on each of those, we can still vote yes, no, abstain, yes, no, abstain, and yes, no, abstain. So this is what my tree diagram should look like, okay? So what I'm going to do now, y'all, is I'm going to look at my choices here, and I'm going to see which is the one that looks most like what I drew there, right there, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look. So let's click the one for B, and let's see if that looks like what we're looking for. No, because this has like 3 motions here. So we know, see, here's the first one, here's the second. I know it's kind of hard to see. But you can kind of get what I'm looking at. Like if I follow the first branch, yes, yes, and yes, that's 3 motions. We only had 2. So I know it wasn't the first one, okay? So let's take a look at the second choice. So we can go yes, no, abstain, and then each of those we can go yes, no, abstain. So this looks like the right one because this looks closest to what we drew. So we're going to say it's choice B, and we got it, okay? Now, we want to determine our sample space. So guys, remember our sample space, let me come back to my picture. So remember, my sample space would be picking something like yes and yes, yes and no, yes and abstain, right? No and yes, no and no, no and abstain, right? And I'm just kind of following each of these branches here, right? And then I would do the same thing. So abstain and yes, abstain and no, and abstain and abstain. So if you notice, we have our 9 choices there, right? So when I come back over here, that would be my first option here, right? So I'm going to pick A. There we go. We got it. Let's check our answer. Que bueno, right? How good. So now, okay. So now the next question says, determine the probability that a board member votes yes and then abstain in that order of motions. Okay, so I'm going to take a screenshot here, y'all, so that do my problem over here, I can figure out what they're asking me to do, okay? So look at the question. The question says, first we want yes, and then we want abstain. So these are my options that I'm looking at, right? So that means I don't care about any of this other business over here. These are not viable, right? These are not the answers. So out of the ones that I selected here in blue, which one has yes and then abstain? That guy right there. So 1 out of 9, okay? So I'm going to come back to my choice here in part C. I'm going to say 1 over 9. And there we got that part. Okay. And then part D says, determine the probability that a board member votes yes on exactly one of the motions. Okay, so I'm back over here. And let me pull up my picture again. Here we go. We got it. And again, I'm going to scratch out all this business because I don't need it, right? Okay. So now the question says, determine the probability that a board member votes yes on exactly one. So exactly one would be not the first one because that has 2. But this one does. That has a yes. That has a yes. And that has a yes. So that's 4 out of the 9, right? So when I come back over here on part D, I'm going to select 4 over 9, okay? And now Part E says, determine the probability that the board member votes yes on at least one motion. Okay, so let me take one more screenshot, and let me pull this up over here, pull up my picture. All right, so let's use, I don't know, let's go gray. Okay, oops. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. That's okay, we'll come back over here. So remember, determine the probability that a board member votes yes on at least one motion. Okay, so yes on at least one means one or more. So we already have the 4 here, 2, 3, 4, and this one we can use as well, because at least one, so at least one means one or more, right? So we already had 4, so we're going to have one more. That's going to be 5/9, right? So I'm going to come back to my choices, and I'm going to go 5/9, and we're going to check our answer, and we got it. Okay, so guys, if you all got any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help.